Hi! So excited to knit a stocking with you. A holiday stocking is the perfect way to learn new skills, and trust me, you can do it even if you're a beginner. There is a link to the pattern in the description. Gather your supplies and let's make a stocking. Hello! I'm so excited to knit a stocking with you. I promise you, if you've never done this before, a stocking is so much easier than you think, and it's a great way to get an intro into making socks and doing a new technique, because you will turn a heel and you'll feel so proud when you do. So this is the supplies that we need. We need our US 13 9mm needles. We need our US 11 8mm double pointed. Some scissors. This is our darning needle for doing our grafting it at the end. 3 stitch markers. I like to use a different color for the very first one, so then I know where my starting stitch is, even though it's usually pretty obvious, but it's just a nice reminder. Then I have my yarn. I'm actually using 2 strands of worsted weight held together, and we will be doing 2 colors. I'm going to do a black cuff with a white sock. Okay, let's get started. First, we got to cast on. I like to do a long tail cast on. You can do whatever cast on that you prefer. It's entirely up to you. For a long tail, you're going to need to have a nice long tail, as the name says. So I'm going to say that's about good. And then you're going to do your loop. Put it over so you got your pretzel. And then pick up that bottom, the one at the very bottom, through your needles. We got our first loop on. Don't tighten your stitches too tight. You just want them to be nice and firm. Okay, for a long tail, this is my tail end. Remember that, your tail, this is your yarn that side. You're gonna hold your 2 yarns together and then pull them apart with your thumb and your forefinger. You're gonna take your needle and go underneath your thumb and then pull it over your forefinger. You got 1 on there. Do it again, nice and slow. Under, over, through. Okay, under, over, through. Under, over, pull it through that loop. So cast on all of your stitches and we'll join in the round in the next video. Okay, so I got my 36 stitches on there. Now it's time to join the round. The first round is always really tight to get together, and if you have a little bit of a gap, you're going to be able to tighten it up with this tail when you're done, so don't fret too much about that. We're going to start with a knit stitch, so have it over that way. Place that first stitch marker and then pull. Make sure you're not twisting any of those stitches. That's the nice thing about using nice big needles and big yarn. It's really easy to see. It's not as tricky as sometimes those smaller yarns. So you can see how tight that is that first time. Some people would start on a double pointed needle just to have that ease. I don't really find that in the end it makes that big of a difference, because you can tighten up your gap, and I'm too lazy to put on a double pointed needle and then put them onto a circular. I want it as easy as possible. Okay, so for this first round, in the pattern I have it as a twisted rib. The very first round, I think I'll just go through on your normal. So the only difference between a twisted rib and a normal rib is that when you go do a knit like this, your traditional way, instead you knit into the back. So actually, let's just do our twisted stitch. I just don't want to confuse you any more than, I know I can be confusing. Okay, so our first stitch, let's do it. Our first knit, pull it through. And now for the purl side, to do it as a twisted rib, you're going to knit into the back of it. So instead of that front traditional, you're gonna go into the back. So a twisted rib, all it does is it's really, really, really pronounced. It's a lot more, it's just more exciting than, or less discreet than your traditional rib. So you're going to continue working your way around. This first round, if this is the first time you are doing this, it is really tight and it's a little bit painful. It's not relaxing at all. And if you're going along and you realize that you've fallen back into doing a traditional one rib instead of the twisted, just go back. You probably won't notice it in the end because it's big and chunky and they all blend together. You can see right here where that string is pulling pretty good. It's okay, I promise. Don't stress too much. Pretty normal for it to go about that much. More than that, maybe you want to rein it in, but it'll be just fine. Okay, one round complete. You're going to keep going around in twisted rib until you have your desired cuff length. So I'll probably go to be, I don't know, about that far. That's what, 3.5 inches. So just keep knitting around. Okay, we've knit around. I've done several rounds. I would guess this is probably 3.5 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Looks like I did about 12, 13 rows. Okay, we're at the beginning of the round and we're going to change color. To change color the best, I was taught in the beginning only ever to weave in your ends. And I actually found that kind of frustrating because they get loose and then you kind of have a gappy spot. So what we're going to actually do is we are going to just start knitting with the new color. And then I will show you how I attach it. So I have my 2 worsted weight. This is Hobby Tweed. I actually really love this yarn. It's an inexpensive yarn. It has a high wool content and so it has really nice loft to it. Okay, so let's knit. Get my tail out of my hand there. So we're gonna go, we're not doing that rib pattern anymore. We're to the easy sailing part where we gotta just knit, knit, knit. I wanna go just far enough that it's definitely in, but it's also still on the needles. Now I'm gonna turn it and I'm gonna go into here, and this is this yarn. I am going to snip it so I have a good tail. I want it long enough that I can weave in later. And I am going to tie it. Now it is important that the last color stitch and the new color stitch are both on that needle so you get a nice even knot, not too tight. So a square knot is the type of knot that will stay firm. Just like that. Perfect. And now you get to just do stockinette stitch for like 8 inches. You could even do it for like 20 inches. Just depends on how long you want your stocking. But this is the best because now you can just put in a movie, put in a podcast, do whatever you want and knit, knit, knit. Okay, So we've knit, done our stocking knit stitch all the way down. I did it for, well, in total with the cuff and the knitting, I'm looking at 12, about 13 inches. My cuff was, look at that, 3 inches, 3.75 inches. Okay, we're gonna start the heel. The heel is exciting. If you've never done a heel, this is going to be a treat. It's like magic. So we're gonna take, we're at the beginning of our row here. Here's our stitch marker. We're gonna knit 9 stitches. So 7, 8, and 9. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Now we're gonna take, you're gonna just need a scrap piece of yarn, and we're actually just going to put these, slip the next 18 stitches on a loose piece of yarn to be knit later. They will actually become your instep. That's the top of your sock. That's 13, 5 more. Now, if I got 18 on there, I should have 9 here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to take these. Just tie that off. Ignore those for a while. These are the stitches we're going to be working with right here. Okay, so we have our 18 stitches here for our instep. We have 18 on the needle, and it looks like our first row will be a purl row. I was planning on keeping this whole stocking white, but for the sake of learning how to do a contrasting color, I'm going to do the heel in purple. So let's get started. We're going to slip that first stitch, and we're going to purl across that row. But now we're going to join our color. Much like before, we'll tie it after, once have gone a few stitches. Okay, and then cut that one off. I just don't have my scissors handy. So continue to purl across. And right now we are knitting the heel flap. We'll need to knit this in stocking net stitch. I can't talk today. For about 2 inches. Okay, turn your work. I'm just gonna break this yarn. Okay, a knit row. You're going to slip it knitwise, and then knit across. Do this until you have a flap that's about 2 inches long, and you should end on a purl row. So then the next row that's coming is a knit row. We want to start shaping it on a knit row. Okay, the heel flap has been knitted. I ended on a purl row so I can start on a knit row. In the end, I did 8 rows, and it's actually over 2 inches. It's about 2 1/4 or 2.5 inches. So we're going to slip our first stitch, and then we're going to knit 9 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And now we're going to do our first turn. So to do that, we are going to slip 1, knit 1, and then take that slip stitch and pass that over, and then knit 1, and now turn our work. We're right in the middle of the work. We're going to turn it, and this is what's going to create that lovely heel shape. So on purl rows, we are going to slip 1, purl 3, 1, 2, 3, purl 2 together, purl 1, and then turn. So with those slip stitches, what we've done is created gaps, and that's where we're going to be working back and forth to. So you can see this gap, and you can see, well, you'll see this gap once I'm on the other side. So we are going to decrease every time as we turn, and as we go back and forth, it's slowly going to work its way out till you are at the very end of the needles. So we're on a knit row right now. So we're going to knit to 1 stitch in front of that gap. So it's coming close. You can see it's right here. So I'm 1 stitch in front of the gap. We're going to slip it, knit, pass that over, knit 1, and then turn the work. On the purl row, we're going to purl to 1 stitch in front of the gaps. So there it is. So we're going to purl the stitch in front of the gap and purl the next stitch together. And then purl 1 and then turn. Then we're going to continue that exact same pattern of knitting right for the gap, slipping, putting the knit stitch over, knitting back and forth to create that heel. So slip, knit, pass over, knit. Because it's such a big chunky yarn and big needles, we are actually going to be at the end of the heel turning pretty quick, and you can already see it happening, that shape. across to one stitch in front of that gap again. Oh, purl 2 together, purl 1, turn. See that? You can see the shape happening. Exciting. There's my gap right there. Slip, knit, turn. So slip this stitch. Anytime you're on the end, we're going to slip it. The reason why we slip our stitches at the beginning and the end is because when we go to pick them up later, it's way easier to pick up a slip stitch than it is regular stitches. It's much easier to see. And purl 2 together. And we did it. We have a heel, see that? So now it's time to pick up our stitches. We'll change back our yarn to the white and then pick up our gusset and get back to knitting the toe. Okay, so we have our heel done. It's time to pick up our gusset on the side. You're going to need your 2 other stitch markers. First, we are going to knit across these stitches. We're going to slip that first stitch and knit across. It is time to pick up these stitches as we work our way across. So this first one, you can see how gappy it's going to be. So I'm actually just going to pull, let me see, I'm going to go here, because if you pick up extra stitches, they're really easy to decrease, and you really just don't want to have a big gaping. Pick one up there. Just keep in mind how many you're picking up. That's 1. I don't like that one. I'm gonna pull a stitch underneath to join it, just to fix that gap. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, we're getting close to that. 7, 8, 9. Okay, let's see where we're at with these pickup stitches and these ones. So I'm going to pick one up right in here, and that gives me a 10. And now it is time to get these ones knitted off the needle, which is kind of tricky. So there's a couple things you could do. You could just put these all on a double pointed needle. Here we go. Let me grab one. Or you could pull this around and then pick up the stitches as you go, because yeah, let's just put on a double pointed needle. Okay, pull that out. We're going to want to place a stitch marker because that is going to let us know where your instep starts. So we picked up 10 along that one side. We are now going to knit across, and we want to pick up 10 on the other side. If you're not perfectly even on a stocking, like let's just say you accidentally picked up 9 or 11, just means that one more decrease row is going to happen on that side, and honestly you're never going to tell because nobody's going to wear the stocking. This is why they're such a great project for a beginner, because you're allowed to learn the technique without it needing to be perfect. Oh, shoot, I forgot to change my color back to cream. You have to make an art decision here, guys. Do we just keep going? Yep, I think we will. I'm not going to change it back to white. I'm just going to keep going. I'm afraid I'm like this lots. If you did want to change it back, you would have done that right before picking up. When we were done that heel before we started picking up the side stitches, that's when you would have changed your yarn back to the original color. Okay, now we need to pick them up along this side. So I'm actually going to see how this one looks like the most obvious one. I'm actually going to do the one just inside of it because that will help me not have a gap. That's one. Let's see. 2, 3. I can already tell I'm probably going to pick up one more stitch than I should have. 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe not, 8, 9. I'm actually at one less than I was before. Who would have thought? Well, we'll just keep it that way. And now we are going to knit across back to the beginning marker right here. So what has happened is that when we picked up all of those stitches, our stocking now has more stitches on it than what we started with. We started with 36 stitches. So what we want is our instep here. Let me hide these threads, they're confusing, yarns. There is 18 stitches here. We want 18 stitches here, which means as we knit across to here, we're going to do a decrease, and then we're going to knit across over here and do a decrease until this side has the 36 stitches. Okay, let's do this. I had to review my notes really quick. We're going to knit across to 4 stitches in front of marker 1. I That's something strange going on there. I'm getting close. Okay, 2, 4, 5. Okay, we are 4 stitches in front of marker 1. What we're going to do now is knit 2 together and then knit 2. Now you're going to knit across the 18 stitches of the instep. There's no decrease happening on the instep, only on that heel. When we get to that stitch marker, we are going to knit 2 stitches. So 1, 2, and then we are going to slip 1, and then knit 1, and then pass it over like that. And now we are going to knit all the way back to that beginning. So continue knitting across until you have the 18 stitches across the heel. And there's 18 here, you want 18 here. So continue your decrease until you have 18 on both sides, back to that original 36. Okay, so I've done my decreases, and so technically we're going to have 9 stitches on this side of the center and 9 on this side. So I actually still have 10 on this side, and then 9 is done on this side. So what I'm going to do is I will continue to knit around. I will not do a decrease here. Then I'll just do 1 more decrease. And then that way they will be even. And I'll have in total 36 stitches, and I can just start knitting my foot at that point. We're back to easy knitting after we're done those decreases. Okay, so I'm coming around to that center again. I did not decrease. I'm going to do my last decrease because remember I picked up 9 stitches on one side and 10 on the other side. So it was just a tad uneven, which if it was a real pair of socks, maybe that's a big deal. The stocking, not such a big deal. So we're going to go to those last 4 stitches. We're going to knit 2 together. Knit our 2, and now at this point we are just going to knit all the way until we're ready to get our toe. And that, the shorter you knit that, this part right here, let me just make this flat. Okay, so you're going to just start knitting to how far you want it. So about 4 inches. The longer you make it, then the longer your foot is going to be. If it's too short, you kind of get that really kind of cartoony, cutesy stocking. If you do it longer, it's more exaggerated. But it's the easy part. So just enjoy knitting in the round for 4 to 5 inches. Okay, we've got a really nice looking foot. So I knitted mine from the heel about 5 inches. I think that looks good. Now it's time to work the toe decrease. It's going to take about 12 rows, I think. Oh, I shouldn't say that. I don't actually remember exactly. There's a decrease that's happening on either side of these two markers. Okay, to work a toe decrease, you're going to knit to 3 stitches in front of that first marker. You have 3 stitches there. You're going to knit 2 together, knit 1, pull that stitch marker over. On the other side of the marker, you're going to knit 1, slip, knit, pull that over, that stitch over, and now you're going to knit to 3 stitches in front of that next marker that is on the other side of the instep. There we go. We're 3 stitches. Knit 2 together. Knit 1. Pull that stitch marker over. Knit 1. Slip 1. Knit and slip that, pass it over that slip stitch over that knit stitch. And now you're going to do that every single row until you only have, let's see, the 16 stitches remaining. Now it's going to get tricky because you are going to have to possibly go on double pointed needles. I like to really stretch my yarn and go as long as I can without double pointed. So I'm going to keep doing my decreases, and if I have to switch over, I'll start the video again. Okay, so I still have to do one more decrease round. It's getting really tight. I could probably make it through this last round and just stretch that yarn a bit and be a little bit of a brat, but I'm going to show you how to just put them onto double pointed needles. So you're going to have to knit to the first marker, which is actually doing 1 decrease, right? You can see how tight this is getting. Knit 2 together. Knit 1. And now I'm going to take these stitches and put them on this needle. I'm going to take all the ones from that green to the other green marker on this needle. There we go. All of the instep stitches are on a needle. And now I'm going to put all of the stitches from that beginning, that instep, so there's only 5 of them right now, on the next needle. That's my beginning round right there. And now we can put I don't need that beginning marker because I know that the middle of these two shorter rows is my center, and we're coming to an end anyways. So okay, so let's do these last decreases on double pointed needles. So keep your needles even and straight, kind of like that. And it's been a while since I've done this. Take that fourth needle, knit one, slip, knit one, pass over. Now go to the last 3 stitches, knit 2 together, knit 1. Now I believe we should have 16 stitches in total. Let's count. 2, 4, 6, 8. 2, 4. Oh, look at that. I still have to finish that last row. Getting ahead of myself. Okay. So we have one more decrease to go. Knit, slip, knit, pass it over, knit to the end of that row. Perfect. Now, since we're in the middle of a row here, we're going to want to knit these stitches so they're just on the same row. So we're starting at the edge, so we're grafting that toe. So just go ahead and knit these onto the same needle. And that way our working yarn is ready to start the grafting stitch. So you can see right here, our toe has been beautifully formed. We're going to be grafting it together, holding it like this. So the top of the stocking is on top, the instep, and the bottom is on the bottom, like that. So you're going to need to cut your yarn about, they say it's about 4 times as long. I just give it a good, that should be plenty. Snip it, thread it through. Okay, and it's time now to graft this toe together. Okay, we have our rows side by side. We have our needle ready. We're going to go into that first stitch as if to purl. We're going to go into the back stitch as if to knit, just like that. Now we've set it up. So next, we're going to come into that first stitch as if to knit, and we're going to drop it off the needle. And then we're going to purl that next stitch in front. Then we're going to go to the back and purl this stitch off. Now we're going to put a knit stitch into the back, leave it on, and then we're going to knit this front one off. So we're doing 2 purls. Here's our first purl, and then our second purl in the back pulls it off. And then we do 2 knits. Sorry. The first knit is in the back, stays on, and then it comes to the front and it pulls off that front stitch. Now we're going back to that front purl, and then the back purl, we pull it off. We go into the back and knit, and then we go into the front, knit, pull it off. Back to the front where we purl, leave it on, go to the back, purl it off. In the back, do a knit stitch, and then knit in the front, pull it off. Purl into the front, leave it on, purl into the back, and drop it off the needle. Knit into the back, and then knit into the front, drop it off the needle. Purl into the front, then purl into the back, drop it off the needle. Knit into the back, and then knit into the front, drop it off the needle. Purl into the front, and then purl into the back and pull it off that needle. Now knit into the back, leave it on, knit into the front, drop it off the needle, and now you're going to go back and purl that last back stitch off. And you've done it. Look at that beautifully grafted toe with the Kitchener stitch. So now you're going to pull your needle through into the inside of the stocking. Just make sure you like how it looks. It's looking good. Turn it around, and we're just gonna give it a good finishing knot. Just knot it in there and then weave it in. No one's gonna be wearing this sock, so you don't even have to be that particular. Leave a tail so that way it doesn't poke out the end. And you have knit a stocking. Look at that. Shape it a little bit. You can see here where you created the gusset, that shaping that you did. And then up here, we have to still weave in our end, the worst part. But there you have it. You got a stocking. Well done.